Finally, Mark.
A lot of times cinematographers are always talking about image and image and image, and I think Faden was the right choice for this movie because all of our conversations are about character. It always comes back to Dave. What is he trying to do? What does he want? How does that frame, does that composition achieve that? Or location scouting, and I take pictures, and he shows up, and I took this picture 2 weeks earlier, and it was snowing, and we need to achieve this look because that's the right kind of emotional context for the scene. I think that's really where Faden and I kind of work the best, is when we can not let, stylistic choices be imposed on the writing. Every time we talk about look or style, we really talk about the absence of style, the absence of imposed style. We really didn't talk about the look of the movie. Faden and I would always talk about the characters, and the kind of style of the film would always evolve out of the narrative.
With Gore, it's really the creative process happens more in the pre-production period, where me and him go to these locations and we start photographing and we find angles that we like. We're like, two little kids with our cameras that, it's just looking for images that we feel could fit the picture, and we would go out with our digital cameras and photograph these locations. And, we were able to find a lot of locations that fit in that palette. And we sort of discovered what the look of a picture should be by doing that. But Chicago in general, the tonality of the whole city, because of all the steel and the stone, and because of the quality of light, sort of gives you the palette we're looking for anyway.
There's really no other city to shoot it in. I think it's a great place to film. I've always enjoyed Chicago. I enjoy the light there. I just think it's a really cinematic, architecturally, and the weather. I just think it's a beautiful place to film a movie.
By the time we started, we really had defined the feel and the texture and the sort of a palette of the film. We sort of were using a much more sort of mid-range scale with a, very sort of pastel-y tones and less contrasty, which is a very difficult look to achieve.
Tom Duffield and I have experience. We worked together on The Ring, and I think he just has a great sense of how to maintain a color palette, how not to break that color palette, especially in a contemporary movie where you're really designing, 90% of your design is location scouting. It's painting, it's getting rid of that blue car and putting in a gray one.
His life of this weatherman was kind of this monotone life, and so he kind of went with this kind of even palette where there were just slight differences in color. Like in his bathroom, there were all these different levels of gray, or rather it was kind of more of a grayish, kind of a gray beige. So we kind of used that as the cue through the whole movie. It was kind of a generic kind of color palette.
There's a very strict philosophy in terms of creating a look for the movie that is supported by and born out of the character. I mean, Dave's world is kind of clinical and colder and desaturated. And whenever he's at his house, it's a little sunnier and a little warmer, and he looks in the door and really only enters that house, in the third act. It used to be where he lived, so it kind of represents the only warm light in the movie.
Gore had some specific requests for the house. It had to have basically an interesting look. It had to be upscale looking, because this weatherman probably made a fairly decent living. And I kind of came to the conclusion right away that I didn't want a house with a house right across the street, because then you're just always looking into somebody's house. We had so much work on the front porch of the house. I was looking for a house at the end of a T intersection, so you could have people on the front porch and get to all the depth of the street and the people and the other houses in the background. And when it snowed, all the trees got snow in the trees, and it looked really cool, the snow going off to the horizon. So basically, I locked in this one house. It was kind of a French provincial house, had a nice color of brick. It wasn't too red, it wasn't too beige. It had a nice appeal from the street, and had a great curved walkway and a nice big porch with a window off the living room, and you could do shooting to and from the house, and a great place to work, a lot of room on the front porch. I thought it was the ideal house. He wanted the inside of the house to be a warm house, because this man has lost his house. He worked his whole life, he had this house, and now he's outside looking in. He's kind of living in this monochrome world, and he looks inside and there's warmth. He sees his family, he sees the warmth of the house, and he can't have it anymore. He can never get past that front door. I wanted the colors to be dark on the walls, warm, I use like these dark gray greens. That's one of my favorite colors. I use it a lot. I used really dark ochres, warm whites, really everything was warm. Even in the front entry hall where we had a lot of work taking place, I used this kind of a blue and taupe wallpaper that if you look really closely, you'll see one of my subliminal weather things. If you look closely at the wallpaper, they look like little satellite photos of like hurricanes. There's just these little swirls in the wallpaper. It's really subtle, but when I was picking through the wallpaper, I go, oh, this looks like a colorized view from a satellite of a hurricane. So we use that. You'll see it if you look really close in the blue taupe wallpaper. For him, we wanted to give him an apartment that was equal to his stature as a weatherman. Plus, I wanted to give him something that had a view. It's Chicago. I want to sell Chicago. I want to show Chicago to everybody. So again, we searched around for apartments and views, and then we hit this one called the River Bend Apartments. And I took the elevator ride up, and I walked in there, and I just went, wow. Because you could see the Chicago River, and you could see all the bridges crossing the Chicago River. The reflections were great on the glass. It had a modern, harder, colder edge, the aluminum. It also reflected his financial success. It was a high visible, great view apartment in Chicago. But he never, I don't think was ever going to see this as his home. He always, I think in his mind, at least until he had the epiphany, he always thought he was getting back into his own house.
What's up, dude?
What's up?
So there's a lot of little sets like the DMV, which is one of my favorite sets, because it really epitomizes our color palette. You know, the kind of that neutral grayish kind of subtle colors everywhere. It had a real nice graphic feel to it.
We had really, compositions we really liked and frames that we had found in pre-production just with our digital cameras. One of our favorite shots is it just had this, lonely clock on it with this cable hanging down, and, the frame that ended up in the movie is identical to one of our favorite stills that we took 2 months prior to that.
You see a lot of clocks in the wall, kind of like a metaphor for life. That's what I said anyways through the whole movie, these clocks, and we use those as graphic elements. That was the two subliminal motifs I used in the movie, was the target theme and the weather theme. You'll see a little like target in the back of the float, because he's kind of on target. Everything in his life, he's trying to find the target.
It's a wonderful metaphor for his attempt to focus and to get it right, to get the job, to hit the bullseye.
We looked at a couple of archery ranges, but we wanted something that was kind of cool, also reflecting the same palette and this gray lifestyle, the monochrome thing. And we went by this one place on the lakeshore in North Chicago called Belmont Harbor. And out there was this little kind of a point. And not only do you get this nice view of the water and the ice and the sky, with the reverses you see the skyline of Chicago and the Drake Hotel. It was like a perfect background. That was an archery range that was way west of the city. We just happened to see when we went there scouting, he had all these like little foam animals out there, and they were like, arms were missing and legs were missing, and it was like so kind of Deliverance, kind of strange, that it was really great. We looked at, oh, this is great. There's something really cool about this. And don't touch them, they're great. And so basically we left them alone. We did a little work there and moved a few things around, and I made paper targets to put on some of the big hay bales that were there. It was a strange location, and it's kind of strange for the movie because it's so kind of this even-keeled movie, I mean, visually, and all these weird animals there. And
really, it's a very surreal scene in a way, because you have all these foam deers and bears and rabbits, I don't know what it was, but it's actually a scene where, it's sort of a cleansing period, of a realization period for Dave's character, and we cut to this sequence where these animals are being rained upon, and the snow is sort of melting and dripping off their faces.
I love working with Gore. We a lot of times, which really helps me, we're on the same page, we think sort of the same about sets, and it makes your life so much easier to go to him and he goes, yes, instead of somebody, you go to somebody and go, no, that's not what I had in mind, and you're always trying to figure out what he really wants, because that's sort of my job, is to get what I like and make it into his vision, and if you're both on the same page, it really is great.
Yeah, very nice.
When my back's against the wall, I order a chink call girl, or I box some rounds with Richie, the Puerto Rican southpaw at Clancy's gym.
Did you start my novel yet?
What's that?
I thought Dave's science fiction novel, or whatever it was stupid and sucked and was a waste of time.
Breaking Point. Did you start that?
No, I haven't yet, so.
It was hard to read. It was poorly written.
Steve Conrad, the writer of The Weatherman, wrote another movie about 11 or 12 years ago called Wrestling Ernest Hemingway. And I had read that script and bought it. And over the years have wanted to work together again. And he wrote The Weatherman and he sent it to me. And I read it and said, this is one of the most unique scripts and funniest and most touching scripts I've read in my career as a producer.
I really wanted to try something in a completely different direction. And about 2 months later, I read Steve Conrad's script, The Weatherman. And it was just completely opposite for me in its challenges, because it's not really built on a plot or a genre. It's really built on a kind of accumulation of details and emotions that became the structure and the story, and it's really deftly written.
You're a real blue ribbon fuck.
When you're making a genre picture, it's all about the language that's been established before and how you manipulate that language and how you play to those expectations. When you're making The Weatherman, there really isn't anything to go to. You look at life. So you kind of zoom into this, and the little bumps become dramatic. They become emotional. It's like an emotional structure, really, to the film.
And it all happened within under a year, actually. From buying it to interviewing directors, hiring Gore, getting Nick Cage, getting Michael Caine, and the studio saying yes. It's all happened under a year, which is pretty unusual. But the script was that good.
We spent a good 6 months before the production. It's working on the story, and you can tell from Gore's pictures, his earlier pictures, that he's a really hard-working director, and that he comes with a plan. Like, he sees the movie before he starts to film the movie. And if a director comes prepared like that, it makes it easier for everybody else to do their jobs. Everybody has a pretty good idea what he's hoping to get on film.
Steve Conrad is somebody I would love to work with again, because I think he's got a very unique way at looking at things. And if I have a problem and I feel like the movie's not coming together, we really collaborated and got together, and he would take my proposed solution to the problem as a way of understanding the problem I'm having, and then he would find a different solution that was better.
One of my first reactions was that it seemed to be incredibly honest, the screenplay to The Weatherman. It had a lot of twists and turns in it. It had surprises. I didn't know which way it was going to turn out. A lot of emotion. I felt it gave me an opportunity to express some range. And I hadn't played anything like this before. You know, I've never played a weatherman.
Our Spritz Nipper of the week with a high of just 24.
Dave spends most of this story on the sort of edge between stability and really dropping off into a very serious emotional mess. One of the things that has rubbed him the wrong way about his career is during his 5-day forecast, he's been asked to select the coldest upcoming day and to label that day the Spritz Nipper.
Hey. Hey. It's been cold. Yeah. What's the nipper this week?
Thursday.
Thursday's the nipper.
So he spends a lot of time discussing this concept of the Spritz Nipper, which he doesn't enjoy, but nevertheless has to do. I don't think it's exclusive to weather people. It's that glad face on the TV guy who comes off as your friend, but you don't know him and he doesn't know you, and it's that chummy thing that some people find offensive. We do cut back into the viewers during the movie to see what they think of him, and some people like it and some people really don't.
I like him. He's handsome.
He's an asshole. I don't like his face. His asshole face.
I think Steve has this ability to look at life and catch the kind of, find drama in the mundane. We all kind of go right past things in our lives, conflicts and confrontations, and Steve Conrad looks at them and says, well, wait a minute, you just walked right past this. This is interesting. And so the script is really built on a kind of grouping of these very small emotional events, and that becomes the structure of the film.
Mild in the northwest. As this high-pressure system gives way, we'll see warm temp.
There's a kind of weather guy in the world that you see on TV who, you get the sense that they don't really know the stuff, they're just reading the stuff, and I think some of them rub people the wrong way for whatever reason. But when I was a kid in South Florida, there was our local weather person was doing a remote on the sidewalk, and I was in a car with my older brothers and some friends, and we'd just gotten back from Arby's and we all had milkshakes, and One of my brother's friends thought it'd be a good idea to try to hit him with this milkshake as we went by. And they tried and they missed, and I was nervous and I hid in the back seat, but I remember thinking after that day for a long, long time, like why, if he was the anchor person, would someone have thought of that, or if he was even the sports guy, it never would have occurred to anybody to do that. It's just something about this weather person.
Weatherman! We're going to begin with some trust-building exercises. Dave, Noreen, center circle.
Before you can start making progress in those therapy sessions, you do some trust-building exercises. And one of the trust-building exercises was to write down a really awful thing that they did to their partner that their partner doesn't know about. Something they regret, but which is a secret to their partner. And then they're gonna write it down and give it to their partner, and the partner's never gonna look at it because they're trying to establish trust. I had a friend who was doing that, and they said that that was a technique of the therapy, and I asked him, did he look at it right away? Because I probably would look at it right away, and yeah, he did. He looked at it right away.
Tartar sauce, tartar sauce, tartar sauce. Tartar sauce, tartar sauce, tartar sauce, tartar sauce.
Well, I think it's not unusual or unique to me, but my wife would send me out on an errand, like to go pick up the dry cleaning. But then I'll come home looking with 45 minutes without the dry cleaning, and then she'll wonder, well, you went out just to do that. How could you not do that?
Where is the tartar sauce?
They were out. They apologized. They were cool about it.
I was thinking about family things, like important family things, and then I ran into a friend, and the next thing I know, I was just back in my garage without the dry cleaning.
They were out?
They were out.
They were out of tartar sauce.
I read your book. It's just what I do, David. I've practiced and I've gotten good. Like you in the weather business.
There's that myth that you hear a lot, and I don't know if it's American or worldwide, but it's that the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, that idea about fathers and sons, but I think that it's not particularly true. I think the apple falls really far from the tree. I don't do what my dad did, and my dad didn't do what his father did, and my son probably won't do what I do. I thought that that was probably worth checking out. That idea that, hey, wait, we really do fall really far from the tree. And then how do you connect? Once you wind up far away from what your dad feels, thinks, represents, works toward, how do you connect then?
That's quite an American accomplishment.
Thanks.
It's the content of the film is brave and honest and in your face. And I think it needs to be that. And I think audiences want that. I don't think they want everything sugar-coated. And the movie does not sugarcoat anything. It's very honest in its telling of a man's life with women, and a man's life with career, and a man's life with his inner thoughts and what he's feeling throughout his daily life.
I think there's a lot of Dave Spritz in Steve Conrad. I really do. I think he's opened himself up with the screenplay, and he's kind of spilled his guts on the table. And I think that in itself is brave. I think he's the kind of writer who gets on the subway and observes things. Instead of getting on the subway and reading a book, Steve's looking at the guy on the subway who's, you know, trying to get his daughter to school, and he's looking at our life now. And in that way, I think he's discovering new emotional language, and that's sort of what I think what makes him completely unique as a writer. I think for Dave, it starts the movie where he still thinks he has all those options, and you know, the lucky ones realize it. You know, there's people who go their entire life not realizing who they've become. You know, Dave is one of the lucky ones. He actually realizes who he is and comes to terms with that. I think that story will always be relevant.
On speed. The character I play is Dave Spritz. He's a Chicago weatherman, and I point that out because a Chicago weatherman is a whole different animal than a Los Angeles weatherman. You know, a Los Angeles weatherman, he's got basically one season. The weather here is so intense, it can be 30 degrees one day and 80 degrees another day.
our Sprit Snipper of the week with a high of just 24.
Although it's intense, it makes it interesting.
I'm Tom Skilling. I'm the chief meteorologist with WGN-TV in Chicago, and I was contacted by Paramount scouts early on. They were kind of casing our office to see what a real weather office looks like. And they came through and were asking what was on our monitors and what sorts of charts we look at each day and what sort of information we look at and kind of what our day is like.
After the story was done, we spent tech time with our big guy in Chicago, Tom Skilling, who is a meteorologist. He's exceptional. He's a scientist and a really good broadcaster of the weather.
Chicago weatherman is a very important weatherman because everyone in Chicago relies on him so much. And if he gets it wrong, it really can ruin their day.
Fortunately, I've never been hit with anything, but there is an association the audience draws with you and the weather, which is quite interesting. They'll ask you, did you bring this weather? Or are you responsible for this weather? And you have standard replies to that, you know, something like, well, gee, it's a gorgeous day, but we had a lot of help. Or it's a crummy day and not our fault. We don't control this any more than we do the nice days. But that's the sort of interaction you get with people. They see you as not just the messenger, weather messenger, but also as somebody who has some control over what's happening. Of course, we don't.
Why even forecast?
It's a technical art, not a science. People get that.
Let's narrow it down, Tim.
Dave, it's random. We do our best. A day can have that variance.
We really went to Tom for kind of our technical advisor. And, you know, our kind of big metaphor in the movie is that, you know, the emotional currents of one's life can't be predicted in the same way that the weather can't be predicted.
Background action and action.
Gore is terrific. I am so impressed with just how down to business he is. We worked closely over the weeks before the shooting began in preparing the graphics that are used on the chroma key screens. And they went over every single detail. I mean, it was amazing how careful they were about what we put together. And I always sensed it was being done with an eye toward what Nick Cage would feel comfortable with.
I think the hardest part about being a weatherman was just simply that I wasn't prepared. I came in on the day and they said you have an hour to rehearse and this is the clicker and you got to figure out what the geography is on the map and oh, and by the way, here's 2 paragraphs of dialogue. And I said, well, can't you put the dialogue on a teleprompter? I haven't had time to memorize. He said, no, we're going to have your image on the teleprompters.
Nick Cage has been just terrific. It's not easy coming into somebody else's environment and trying to reproduce what they do. It's pretty impressive the way he steps into that role, stands in front of this strange green screen with nothing on it and interacts with it like he's been doing it all of his life.
It's very hard to do all that, to do, you know, those gestures. And one of the things early on is, you know, when we first moved, he kind of is practicing those gestures, the clicker and the turn and all of that. That's part of his identity, and it's kind of like his Tai Chi, and you know, in the morning. I mean, he gets up, has his coffee, and he runs through his business.
You have to really practice it. And he's been very instrumental in kind of teaching Nick the rhythm of that and teaching Nick the rhythm of delivering the weather and looking at the teleprompter and looking at the green screen and having the monitor in your ear, and it's a lot of practice.
The hardest thing, I think, for an actor to do is exposition, you know. So, you know, Nick could do 5 pages of dialogue if it's emotionally based, but it's very difficult to come in and do, you know, a page and a half of, you know, down in Waukegan we've got 32, and up, it's a hard thing to remember because it's just data. So those were difficult scenes to shoot.
But first, Dave Spritz has a check of our national weather. Dave?
Well, thanks, Bryant. Well, it feels like spring if you're in the Northeast. Is it going to last? Let's take a look.
This has been a lifelong passion. The weather has always fascinated me. My parents could never quite figure out what they had done wrong. They would have preferred to have had a doctor or a lawyer. But I don't know, the weather affects everything we do so directly. It affects the way we feel, it affects our psychology, it affects the way the economy works. We find it even affects the way medicines work and all. So I think that's why there's this bond between the audience and the weather forecaster that's kind of unique among news team members, because you're dealing with a subject that has some impact on everybody at some level.
And that's who I am. The weatherman.
Don't forget the tartar sauce.
You just read the weather.
Dave Spritz is not somebody we immediately identify with as a character. He's a local weatherman. He has issues. He's a little selfish. But he's pretty much just like everybody. You know, I think we're all a little selfish. I think we all have these issues. I think we all want to be a good father. We want to kind of get that job and be important. And I think throughout the process of the movie, he allows you to identify with him, whereas normally you might not identify with this character.
You know, when I watch TV and I see these commercials of people who are smiling so much, or early morning TV shows where people are drinking too much coffee and they're those happy, smiley people and really chipper and bobbing their heads around, and it's just a mask. And what is their life really like behind that mask? And it seems like the more they smile and the happier they get, the more they're hiding. And the thing that I responded to in the screenplay was that it's about one of these smiling heads, but you see what his life is like behind it, and it's not easy.
Nobody can do what Nick does. You know, he really, he can take a character who's emotionally flawed and conflicted, and he kind of just opens this door and he lets you in as an audience. And I think he can be incredibly subtle and incredibly brave in terms of just sharing that with you.
Gore Verbinski and I, we have a terrific rapport on set. I think we both saw an opportunity here to do some experimenting. We're trying some things which neither one of us have done before. We both realized that this was a labor of love for each of us.
You know, we start the movie with Dave trying to put his family back together. We also understand that he can't live up to his father, and this father has an illness. So I think that family aspect is just something that we all identify with. He sees in his father a great man and a great father, and he's trying to still be that. And I think that aspect of chasing something, of trying to search out perfection, and the fact that he is a weatherman, you know, who in essence takes something incredibly complex, which is the weather and pressure systems, and you know, and in this movie that's very much parallel to his own, you know, emotional journey.
On top of that, he has a very impressive father, played by Sir Michael Caine, who's a Pulitzer Prize-winning novelist and has a lot of respect and is excellent in his life, whereas my character has failed in his life and is basically aspiring to be like his father and can't quite knuckle down.
As written, Robert Spritz is very difficult to live up to, and he's kind of a great man. He's also someone who just doesn't beat around the bush. He tells it as he sees it.
But you just read the weather.
Well, I predict it.
You don't have a degree in meteorology.
And I think a lot of actors could have made that cold and kind of impenetrable. But he has a kind of softness that you can't, you know, he can play it cold, and he has a softness. I do think his father, you know, Robert loves Dave. It's Dave who has the problem. Dave doesn't feel that love. Dave feels like he's not living up to his father's expectations. I think he puts it upon himself.
Well, I think the nature of the relationship between the father and son, between Robert Spritzel and Dave Spritz, is that Dave Spritz really wants his father's approval, but knows that his father is disappointed in him. He doesn't have a lot of respect for his job. He doesn't see anything that important in being a weatherman. And I failed with my family, so I can tell that my character's in a state of denial, whereas he's no holds barred, honest, direct, tough love type of guy, like you're blowing it.
Robert has never failed. This is the terrible thing. Robert is, my character, is a terribly successful man who succeeded in everything except his son. And it's a terrible disappointment to him. And he really tries to rectify it all the time. And of course he has to come to terms with the relationship, which is what the main crux of my part of the picture is about, trying to turn him into a winner.
Okay, look, I'll deal. I want to get her through this ACL thing. I'm going to take her shooting. I'm going to reapply her there. I'm going to get her talking to me. I'm going to get to her. And I'm going to work it out. Sir Michael Caine definitely conveyed an aura of presence, of kind of a stern, intimidating quality, which seemed very, very appropriate for the character. And you know, Michael's one of those actors who's a master of not blinking and like sort of staring right at you. So a couple times before some of the takes, he would give me those ice blue eyes and stare at me, and I wanted to stare right back, but I was playing a character that wasn't gonna be able to meet his gaze, so I'd have to like look away and get into this father and son dynamic.
He's one of the most intense actors I've ever worked with. And I expected him to be an intense person, but he's one of the most relaxed people. He's completely different from what you imagine he's going to be. I thought he'd be all like Nicholas, you know. He's not like that at all. He's very easygoing. Brilliant actor. I love working with him. I think we make a good little partnership, yeah. We work very well together.
Hey, weatherman!
He's like the fast food that he gets, you know, hit with. His father's filet mignon, and he's an Egg McMuffin. Egg McMuffins are great once in a while, you know, but I don't think Dave believes that that's who he is, you know. He still thinks he's this complex being.
What happened?
I got hit with a Frosty.
Why?
What?
Why did you get hit with a Frosty? What is a Frosty? Yes, that's what I can't get over. Because he's a weatherman, he gets people throw things at him, like hot dogs and hamburgers and milkshakes and Frosties and ice cream. They aim things at him. Because, you know, the weatherman, he's liable to tell you the wrong weather. Even if he tells you the right weather, it's usually weather you didn't want.
What kind of name is Spritz? It's a bullshit name.
Something about him annoys them. And maybe he's not getting the weather right, or maybe they don't like his face, or maybe they don't like the way he makes money with doing very little work. Consequently, he's always getting food thrown at him. People are throwing chicken McNuggets at him or Frosty shakes.
And his father, played by me, can't understand why every time I meet my son, he's got sort of hot mustard going down his, or a milkshake. I know. He said, people throw things at you? Why? He said, I'm the weatherman.
Well, that was one of the most enjoyable parts of the film, was being able to throw things at your lead actor. I certainly couldn't let anybody else do it, you know, particularly as you got into take 4 or 5.
Nah, Gore's pretty good. He'll get this in about, you know, first 3 takes, he'll probably get it.
Are you ready?
You know, did you know that? God, fuck! Did you know that? God, fuck! God, fuck!
I had to have Nick know it was me doing it, and know that we had that kind of relationship. But, you know, I certainly think it's something I may bring to my other movies, you know, because there's just this wonderful release, you know. I think the McNuggets were probably my favorite.
Hi.
Hi.
Hope is one of the most underrated actors we have. I mean, she's incredibly talented, and she makes choices that nobody else would have played, you know, this role the same way.
I play Noreen. I play his ex-wife, but we have kids together, so we're still very much involved in one another's lives. And I think he's kind of wishing that I weren't his ex-wife, but still his wife.
The ex-wife role is always very difficult. It's particularly tricky in this film because we actually have to do 2 things. We have to want them to get back together, and we have to also know that it never would have worked out. And we have to be okay with it. We have to know that, you know, there was a reason it didn't work out. There was a reason, you know, there are reasons people get divorced, you know, and we can't hate her for that. And we have to just understand that's the way it is. And we can't hate Dave for it either. So it's a fine line. I think Hope, you know, plays it deftly. I think she really sits right in there and can play both sides.
I just want to make it work, Noreen. I just want to know everything so I can make it work. That's why I want to try again.
He's a great kind of American character. You know, even though he's sort of reached this kind of seeming success, he's completely disappointed in his life because he believes, you know, you think your life is going to be this fairy tale of perfection, and of course, it's never that way. And Dave is really suffering from the letdown of who he really is.
You looked at it. It's dishonest. It's crappy.
Noreen.
What, should I look at yours?
That's all right. No, Noreen.
Throughout marriage, BJ's lacked enthusiasm. Had difference of opinion over how important that was, I thought very.
He's amazing. I mean, he's incredible in this part. He's created such a sympathetic character of, he's so funny, and it's just, he's pathetic, and he's trying to do everything right, and he just doesn't have a clue. And I don't know, Nick manages to do this in a way that nobody else can do.
When they first meet each other, there's this awkward space between them, and they don't really connect, and he tries to break that by throwing a snowball at her to kind of get back to the fun they used to have, and that goes wrong.
Noreen!
Yeah, there are these great scenes between the man who, my current boyfriend, who, you know, I'm very involved with, and my ex-husband, who are fighting like, you know, kids in the sandbox, and they're extremely competitive, and my ex-husband acts in just a ridiculous fashion. He slaps him in the face with his gloves at one point. He acts like a real fool. He embarrasses himself, which is kind of one of Dave's specialties, is just humiliating himself.
The way he did it, so taking off his gloves and everything like that, and it's all going on in his mind while I'm talking, and it's like, and he just bears down on you. So it was actually fun to shoot, because you knew you had to get to this one point where you had to make this technical thing work. You know, you had to physically make this action work. So it was great.
She's dating a guy, Russ, who really is, you know, kind of the safe choice, the right choice. You know, Dave has all these problems that Russ doesn't have.
Not super overly successful, but definitely a 9-to-5 guy, and he was a steady guy, and he could offer Hope and her children a steady presence as the father. Whereas Nick wants more, and what else do I want in my life, and what else am I doing? This guy, I think, is pretty much settled and calm. He's here, and he's found the woman that he loves, and she loves him, and he can fit into this puzzle and be a good stepdad to the son and daughter, and that's absolutely fine with him.
His father was a Pulitzer Prize-winning author, and his son is also kind of an aspiring novelist, but the best he's done is to write something which no one can seem to get through. Just the people in the family can't seem to get through it.
What? I'm just asking, did you ever even read it?
Oh, it was hard to read. It was poorly written.
There's a lot of friction between the two of them, and, you know, all he wants is his father's respect. And I kind of am on the side of the father. I love him and think he's a wonderful man, and you know, it's kind of a little bit us against him.
Marriages fall apart for a variety of reasons, and in this case, Dave is construed as being selfish. But he's looking back and saying, you know, maybe if I didn't forget the tartar sauce, it would all be okay.
Here we go.
Anything else?
No. The breakup over things always seems to be over the stupidest things. But it's not really about the tartar sauce. It's something underneath, but the tartar sauce is what just blew the whole thing up.
Where is the tartar sauce?
They were out.
You know, and Dave looks at the tartar sauce as everything was going to be fine if I just remembered the tartar sauce, and he's completely oblivious to the fact that, you know, that marriage was going that direction anyway.
It's not about the tartar sauce. It's about you. You don't care.
I don't care about tartar sauce. In terms of family, I think it's a very realistic portrayal of what a lot of families go through. I mean, this isn't the Brady Bunch. There are no perfections in this family.
He's kind of just a little too self-involved to be a family man. And, you know, he's there, and it's really fun when the kids are little, but as they grow older, he kind of loses track of everybody and is too busy kind of pursuing his career and thinking about himself. And, you know, I think he just was kind of out to lunch, and suddenly the whole family's like, you know, you can go because we don't really need you here. We have two kids, Shelley and Mike, both of whom have a lot of problems, and no one is really paying any attention to them. Shelley seems to have a little bit of a weight problem. Kids are making fun of her at school. Mike is in rehab for pot smoking at the young age of, I guess he's 14. So yeah, the kids are kind of going off in all different directions, you know, smoking cigarettes out behind the house, and nobody really seems to be paying attention because they're busy bickering and all kinds of other things.
You know, Shelley is bored with life. She's in a ballet class, she's overweight, and she's just completely uninspired. Jimena de la Pena, we really kind of discovered on this movie. She just came in and read We didn't want it to be stunty, you know, we wanted to discover fresh faces. So, I mean, Joanna is just, I think, because no one's ever seen her before, I think she's really gonna pop. She's just very honest in her performance and who she is.
Well, the mom doesn't really pay her at all a lot of attention, so she doesn't really have that close of a relationship with the mom. The grandfather is pretty much the only person in the beginning who does give her attention. He realizes about the clothes and tries to tell the father that there's definitely problems there and that he should try to get closer to her.
I think, you know, you have to be there every day. You can't just go in and fix it in a short amount of time. Yet, quite often as, you know, fathers, that's what we try to do. We work, we come back, we show up, we say, you know, let's fix this problem. You know, so there's a great moment as a parent where, you know, especially as a parent who's absent, to come in and to try to overcompensate and say, I'm gonna fix this. I'm gonna teach my kid archery. It's gonna, you know, it's gonna be the thing that's gonna change her and set her on the right course. One of my favorite scenes is when he tries to teach his daughter archery, and he's kind of brought with it all of this, you know, philosophy and what it means to him and how it allows him to kind of concentrate and focus his life, and she just wants to kill animals.
Well, the archery is something that really, I think, saves Dave Spritz. I think if it wasn't for the archery, that he would really be a drowning man. But somehow, the archery kind of comes into his life almost inadvertently like some sort of angel, and he starts really developing a passion for it.
It's a wonderful metaphor for his attempt to focus and to get it right, to get the job, to hit the bullseye, to get these things. And really, I think the more he focuses, the more he starts to see himself.
Do you want me to get you a corn dog?
What? No.
What do you want?
Nothing.
He has quite an interesting relationship with his father where he worries about him and he sees the fact that I think the dad he tries to do the right thing and look after the family, and he's obviously trying to get back with the mum and sort things out with the family and everything. And Mike sees that, but it always seems to go wrong for him. But Mike sees that and he respects it in him, but he does worry about him also.
You don't look real good, Dad. You okay?
Yeah.
Dave's sitting there watching the house and thinking what could have been with the family and whatnot, and then I just wander up and ask him how he's doing, and it's just a little father-son bonding sort of thing, if you see what I mean, almost, in a very subtle way.
You know, all father-son relationships, in a way, are this kind of vicious circle where the father probably didn't feel like he got it right in his life, and the son doesn't recognize that, and the son feels like he's not living up to the expectations of his father. And that kind of goes on forever. And ultimately in this movie, Dave, I think, breaks that cycle. I think he allows his own son to not try to be him.
You're not gonna take my job, are you?
No, I'm gonna be a cameraman for Monday Night Football. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's good. I think that even though Dave Spritz has failed and made mistakes, that he has a genuine affection, a deep love for all of his family, and in his mistakes, you see a man really trying to do his best, and that's coming out of love. So I mean, I hope that comes across in the movie.
And I think really what's interesting about the movie is what happens in the end, you know, and it's not what you'd expect, and things don't work out the way typically they do in Hollywood movies. And I think that's what's brave about the film, and that's what's honest about the film.
It's a brave movie in that way, in that it's really dealing with some issues that are very painful, you know, in really hurtful ways, but things that are real. And it's just a very kind of naked look at American culture, but it's done in such a kind of bitingly funny way.
Basically, this film says that families are very, very important, but if it's a disaster, it doesn't matter, because you can live your life with the disaster of a dysfunctional family. There's always hope, even for a disaster-prone guy like Nick's character, David.
He's the guy you see on TV, but he's really much more than that. And in the end, I think he's much more than that only when he understands that he isn't, that he really is the weatherman, and he gets blown around just like the rest of us.
Okay.
Gore Verbinski.
Here we go.
228.
Worked with a few people on every movie. There's sort of the inner ring, the outer ring, and they kind of, it expands out. And it's like an ensemble piece, and it's not just an ensemble for your actors. It's an ensemble piece for your crew.
Action. I just want to make it work, Maureen. I just want to know everything so I can make it work.
There might be 150 people, but really your core people, it's like 12 people you've worked with and you've developed relationships with, and you have a shorthand. Craig Wood, who's my editor, who I've used on all of my movies, I may mix up these other areas, but Craig's a constant, and he's a constant because he's really a storyteller.
We're both storytellers, I think, and I guess he likes how I complement his ability to tell stories. You know, the aspect that I focus on is often a more technical aspect of the storytelling. You know, does this make sense? This doesn't make sense because we don't understand this emotional thing here. You know, I think I can usually pinpoint the problem, and it's not always in the scene that it seems to be in. You know, it'll be a cumulative thing, and he likes my ability of bouncing back those ideas.
We've developed a shorthand. He can look at my dailies and go, oh, he wanted to do it this way. Immediately. He doesn't have to read script notes. He can look at the footage and decipher intention, which I think is really helpful. And then it's also when we have problems. He's a great sounding board.
We have grown to have very similar taste over the 12 or 13 years that we've been working together. We don't always have the same taste. There'll be times where he'll go, no, I really wanted to use that take, but most of the time I will have chosen the same take that he would have.
Cutting the movie is like writing the movie. It's where you thought you needed a page of description or dialogue or exposition, and you cut the movie together and go, no, it's right there on the face. You know, that's the thing you can't write. You know, or it's this piece of music against that shot that conveys this, and we can lose all this other stuff. Those things you don't always see on the page.
I think sometimes scripts are word heavy because you're reading them on the page, and that's all you've got to communicate the idea is dialogue. So they become a little bit dialogue heavy, and some of that just has to be trimmed in the editorial process. Often you'll truncate a scene, you'll finish it sooner than it was written to be because that information is implicit just in the performance of the actors. On Weatherman, both Gore and I went into it wanting to hold on shots a lot more than we usually do. Didn't want to make it a very cutty film at all. Wanted to let performance play for the camera. So we often just sit on a two-shot of the characters just talking to each other, much more than we normally do. There was one scene where Dave Spritz's character is interviewed for his job in New York, and the coverage on the scene was, you know, allowed for a standard cut version of the scene. And I cut that version and I said to Gore, it feels a bit ordinary, and he suggested just staying on Nick. And I tried that and it worked so well. There's a special effect halfway through the shot to make it a continuous shot with one line removed. Other than that, it's as it was shot, just a single shot of Nick. And I think it says more, it's funnier, and it's just a better piece of filmmaking.
Cinematographers, I like to change because of my relationships with the DP, because of their strengths, that I think we can collaborate uniquely in certain circumstances. And in the case of Faden, he really is a filmmaker. He's really a director more than a cinematographer in a way.
Of course, you think about a picture, and when you read the script, you see it. I mean, when I read a script, I'm kind of watching the whole movie. That's why I'm kind of a slow reader, because I literally, I'm watching the film, on screen. But I have an approach where I like to go in a little bit unprepared and sort of, like I said, see the performances, see what the set is like, what is a natural light situation that moment when we're about to do it. And, I wouldn't really consider myself like a technical cameraman. I don't really like to preconceive the look of a picture too much. I sort of respond more instinctive and intuitive, and when we show up the day of a shoot, we come in with a board. There's a board like on a commercial that has every single frame that we're going to do that day. It's very specific, you know, screen directions, like it's completely broken down. And the execution of the shoot on the day is actually a much more sort of mechanical, very efficient, you know, like his whole crew and his whole team is a very, you know, precise machine. And we actually set up the shot, rehearse it, prepare it, light it. The actor, in this case Nicolas Cage, would come, basically enter the shot, and we'd execute it immediately without a rehearsal. I mean, it's a very precise process in that way. But you know, the road to that final stage is very creative. But you know, I think that's why when you see a Gore Verbinski picture, you have that sort of consistency and that, you know, level of craftsmanship that is really very high.
It's going exactly according to plan. The vision is intact. Don't worry.
Todd and I have become great friends in making this movie. And Todd was the person who sent me the script. And I'm very thankful for him. And he was there every day fighting for the film. And that term, producer, gets abused and thrown around these days. We have producers, executive producers, co-producers, associate producers. Nobody knows what it means anymore. And Todd is a producer. He does what a producer should do. And, you know, he orchestrates talent, works on development, is there looking at dailies every day. He's, you know, as a director, he's protecting you from kind of all this BS that distracts you from doing your job. And he's just a great collaborator.
Well, Gore has an amazing talent that a number of directors don't have. Gore is great with story. He knew exactly where to go in and say, okay, if I'm the audience and I'm watching the movie and we're at this scene at 7:30 in the evening, because the movie started at 7, I want to be feeling this. I want to be feeling this at 7:40. I want to be feeling this at 7:50. And I've never worked with a director that is so aware of an audience and of entertaining an audience throughout the directing of the movie. He's put the movie together in his head while he's shooting it. It's almost as though he's the editor while he's the director. And it's a great, great gift as a producer to work with a director like that.
All the choices on this movie for me were people who understood storytelling. Penny Rose, who did costume, was, you know, especially in a character piece, there's nothing else to distract you. You're really looking at the actor, you're looking at the clothes they're wearing. You know, finding Dave's suit was really important, finding those ties, you know, making it not quite fit, you know, in a movie about a character who's not that comfortable with himself. And then at the end of the movie, you know, just slightly tweaking it so it just sits better. His collar feels better.
That was totally down to Nick and I. And then by the time he starts to be a bit more successful, he looks a bit better.
Taking Michael Caine and giving him a wider collar, you know, throughout the movie and making him feel like he's shrinking a little bit and getting thinner. Very small things just to make him feel like he's kind of fading away. This great man who's just, you know, in decay.
We just gave him bigger size shirts and, you know, let the suits out a bit. But we didn't make a big deal of it. He acted it, actually.
Shelley dresses in clothing not appropriate for her. Clinging stuff.
All kids wear... Dad, it's a different generation.
They call her a camel toe.
What?
Are you aware of that?
What?
That her colleagues call her a camel toe.
What are you talking about?
It means the crease in her vagina that they can discern through her clothing.
What?
You know, she's an 11-year-old kid who has absolutely no idea of her own body shape or language. And we had to turn her from a kind of schleppy kid into a kid that looked nice. She was quite shy, Jermaine, and yeah, I mean, I think it worked out fine. And Nicolas Cage was hugely helpful with her when we were shooting it, encouraging her. And I think in the end, she quite liked looking like a kind of yuppie little girl.
You like it?
I like it, yeah. Do you like it?
Yeah, I think I do.
Do you feel comfortable in it? Because, you know, that's the thing.
Yeah, it's comfy.
I just wanted to make her look a lot more sophisticated and elegant. And I used to say to her, you know, if you were having lunch with your grandma, which of course in England would mean you would really dress up. Nobody here dresses up, so it was kind of, what was I talking about? So I did it as if she was a British kid going to lunch with her granny.
Hans Zimmer did the score, and he kind of did it as a favor.
Somebody had said, would I please go and talk to God? You know, I know a lot of young composers. We just started having this chat, and You know, supposed to last for 20 minutes, and 3 hours later, when I got great ideas for the movie, you know, so he said, well, why don't you just do it? So I thought, who got me into this other than Gore, so he shall suffer for this. So I wrote it for Gore playing funky guitar, my friend Heitor Pereira, who is actually an amazing guitarist who had to go and play bass, Jimmy Levine, who is one of the great sort of gospel organ players, he got to play a real Fender Rhodes, and my friend Ryland Allison playing drums. And we just set up in my room. We didn't go to a studio, we just set up in the room. We would just project the picture up against the wall. And I really carefully mapped everything out, and everything was really written. And then I would just at night, we'd do this at night and, you know, into the early hours of the morning, we just sit there and play up against it. So even though the whole thing feels like it's improvised, it's actually really tightly scored.
I had sent him some bits of music of different things I had liked, and I was feeling this. For winter, I was almost feeling this kind of reggae vibe that really isn't something you think about when you think about winter, but it kind of had a nice cross current. And I you know, was really thinking about Fender Rhodes, just in isolation. And I called Hans and I gave him those two thoughts, and that was it.
Neither of which overtly have anything to do with people in Chicago and what the story is. But I mean, that's the whole point, isn't it? I mean, the music is supposed to do what you can't elegantly say in words or show in pictures. I mean, we are that other thing, you know. And I just wrote this long stream of consciousness thing, you know, stream of consciousness, but being German and a perfectionist, it was all like, you know, I had thought about every note during my stream of consciousness. And it became a sort of the template for the whole thing, you know, and I sent it to him to Chicago, I think before he started shooting.
He sent me like a 7-minute piece of music, which is really the basis for the entire score.
I got this terrible habit of always saying to the director, I don't want to read the script, tell me the story, because then I know what's in his head, you know, where we're going with this thing. I kept saying to Gore, send me photos. So he sent me like a photo of a clock on the hospital wall, you know, stuff like that. You know, I'd go, oh, I know how to write that. You know, show me what colors you guys are going to be in. What's the lighting going to be like in this movie? Oh, I know how to make that sound. I know how to be complementary to this style.
There we go. Anything else? No?
Every composer has 12 notes. Everybody has 12 notes. Those are the 12 notes that exist on the keyboard. If you know what the movie is about, you find the right combination of those, and it's only those that will work for this image. And you can't justify it. There's no science that justifies it. It's just how you feel it in your gut. You know, and they're hard-earned. I mean, I remember, you know, sitting there for a while trying to write those, and trying to find those notes that would go with that photo of the clock on the hospital wall. There are many ways to collaborate, I suppose. You can collaborate by talking about things, or you can collaborate by, you know, here is my work, here's the piece of music, you know. Now let's see how it informs and influences, you know, the rest of your process.
You know, finding that, I think, and having that collaboration with a composer is really essential.
It's sort of personally important that I get to work with Gore on stuff like this. You know, which I just think it's important movie making. There's a lightness about the way he does things. You know, you can't quite catch him at being profound. You know, but he is. You know, and It's great.